Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kristen Dorr, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we get into it, let me just do a few quick housekeeping notes. First, feel free to maximize your screen in the upper right-hand corner. You'll get the best view in the house. Second, if you have any questions at any time during this presentation, please ask those in the question box, and David will answer them at the end. And third, we do have some polls during this webinar, so pay attention to those. They'll be right at the very beginning, so don't miss them. And fourth, today we're going to be talking about case management, improving information worker productivity through automation. And our speaker is David Starkweather, and he is a subject matter expert on this topic. So I will give the mic to him. David?
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today as part of our 30-minute information governance webinar series. Each month we take a half an hour or so to talk about the challenges we see our customers facing and share a little bit about what we see working and what we see not working in attempts to solve those challenges. So today we're going to talk a little bit about case management, and I'll talk for about 20 minutes, and then we'll open up the floor for any questions that you might want to ask. So before we get started, I just want to find out a little bit more about who we have on the call today. And really the reason for this is I want to maximize our time together. So Kristen's got a couple of polls ready for us, but the first one that we want to ask is, how familiar are you with the concept of case management? A, not very familiar, B, I have some knowledge, or C, I am very familiar. All right, great. We got some results coming in. Looks like most of us have some knowledge. Some are just starting out on our knowledge, and maybe at least one or two people are very familiar. Okay, great. That's a good mix of people. Hopefully, there'll be a little bit of something for everyone in this presentation. The second question I wanted to ask is, what industries do you work in? And this is intentionally a very abbreviated list, and I'll explain that in a moment. But if you are not in legal, healthcare, insurance, or finance, go ahead and click Other, E. All right. We have nobody, it looks like, in legal, healthcare. Okay, some insurance and some finance and a lot of other. Okay, great. For those of you on the listed industries, you may have some preconceived notions about case management coming in here. Hopefully we'll expand on some of those a little bit. And for the rest of you, the 63% other, don't feel slighted that I don't have your industry listed here. This webinar was really designed with you in mind. Okay, let's jump into it here. If you are in the legal industry, the healthcare industry, or the insurance industry, you probably already have a good idea of what case management is all about. Historically, those three industries inherently use the concepts of case management in their day-to-day business. But the term case management can mean very different things depending upon who you are. For example, the legal industry understands a case in terms of a legal matter, and the healthcare industry understands a case in terms of a patient's diagnosis and treatment plan. And if you're in insurance, you probably understand the concept of a case in terms of a claim. But for this webinar, we're going to be talking about case management in a much broader term, and that is case management as a highly collaborative, dynamic, and information-intensive process that is driven by outside events and strives to achieve some desired outcome. So what does that mean? Well, depending upon your industry and the business process you're looking to automate, you may translate a case to be any number of things. For example, an automobile claims processor will define a case in terms of an incident, which typically leads to a claim. And they may perform a wide variety of unstructured tasks when processing that claim based on the nature of the incident. For example, who's at fault? Was anyone hurt? Is there a police report? Are the vehicles drivable? So the process they use to resolve that case will likely be very different each and every time. And this is very different from traditional business process management or BPM solutions that focus on a very tightly defined workflow. So if you are thinking about implementing a technology solution to manage some aspect of your business, Consider these differences. BPM manages what is predictable and repeatable, whereas case management manages what is variable and unique. BPM solutions are driven by process, where case management solutions are driven by knowledge. And BPM focuses really on efficiency through automation, and case management really focuses on delivering unique value. So, some big differences there. And finally, BPM focuses on tasks that typically remove thinking from the user, but case management focuses on goals that rely on the expertise of the knowledge worker. So there's some knowledge worker in case management that's bringing their expertise to bear on the process. And we are seeing more and more of our customers move away from traditional BPM and embracing case management. BPM was really born out of a time when we were focused on mass producing widgets. And having a very tightly defined and controlled process is critical if you're producing something on an assembly line. Case management, however, has evolved in response to rapidly changing business environments. And organizations today are finding more and more that they need flexibility, they need access to information to keep themselves adaptive and competitive. And these are just a couple of comments from the VPs at Gartner and Forrester on what they're seeing in this area. But Connie Moore from Forrester went as far to say is, I think a sea change is coming in the process world. And that sea change that she's talking about is really a shift towards case management. Now, every company has business processes that follow a case pattern and are built around content. And this here is just a partial list, and I'm sure we could brainstorm dozens more. But there are really three emerging use cases that seem to be getting the most traction around case management solutions. An investigative use case, an incident management use case, and a services request use case. And these emerging use cases were first identified by a guy named Keith Swenson. I've got to give him credit for these. He's written an excellent book on case management called Managing the Unpredictable. And if you really want to do a deep dive into case management and the philosophy behind it and why we need it, I highly recommend you check out his book. And his name is Keith Swenson, and his book is Managing the Unpredictable. But let's talk about some practical application. So we built a case management solution for a large healthcare organization to help them manage their contracting process. This healthcare provider operates 13 hospitals in a large metropolitan area, including one of the busiest emergency rooms in the country. And they didn't have any centralized contracting processes in place, and each hospital functioned as its own independent entity, even though multiple hospitals could share the same contract. So needless to say, their contracting process can be pretty complex and diverse. And it's largely driven by the type of contract being executed and the specific knowledge workers who have experience around each of those contract types. So for example, the contracting process for an IT vendor who's going to have access to patients' medical care or medical records is very different from the landscaping vendor who's going to be mowing the lawn, okay? And the vendor who's selling medical devices to the hospitals is subject to yet an even different process for their contracting. So you can see it was going to be tough to come up with a static workflow that was going to work for everyone. So when we tried to model this, their contracting process using a traditional BPM workflow, this is what we came up with. And we affectionately refer to this as the spaghetti diagram, and it did really have the consistency of a wet noodle. And this was just for a single department within the organization. We were going to have to do similar workflows for dozens and dozens of departments. So in this approach, we defined the workflow first and then tried to figure out how to make our information and our people support the workflow. So when we modeled this process using a case management approach, we realized there were some common tasks that each contract had to go through. There were some business rules that could be implemented. However, the success of their contracting process was in most cases at least, based on the knowledge and the expertise of the people involved in that contracting process. Now this is a bit of an oversimplification of the final workflow, but when we put the decision-making process back in the hands of the knowledge worker and made the process serve the people and the information, we were really able to simplify this task greatly. And at the end of the day, we had much happier users as well. So when you model a solution for case management, you want to generate a list of the tasks that may be required to complete the case. Then you can define those workflows that you want to enforce within each task. But at the end of the day, you allow the knowledge workers to determine which tasks need to be executed to resolve the case. So in our contract management solution, we developed the reusable task that you see here, and we let the knowledge worker select which paths the new contract had to follow. Of course, we also put in a system of checks and balances. We built some guardrails around the process, so to speak, to make sure no critical steps were skipped. But we didn't attempt to build 100 different business rules to dictate a forced workflow. And if you're in the process of designing a case management solution, you want to think about the people and the information you need to successfully resolve the case, and then design your process. And that's a little different mindset than what most of us are used to doing today. So let's take a closer look at this. There are a wide variety of case management products on the market today. Some of them are very industry specific. For example, there's case management for healthcare, there's case management for legal. And in fact, if you do a Google search for case management, your first page of results is going to be entirely about case management for legal. But there's also these case builder solutions out there that can be used to model and build a whole wide variety of applications. So what you're seeing here, this is a case builder tool that we utilize. And this is IBM's product, but many of the case management tools on the market offer similar features to the one I'm going to show here. But you can see that I've got a wide variety of case applications built out here. And I want to show you just how easy it is to build out a solution using a case builder tool. So just a quick disclaimer here. You're probably all aware the concept of case management has been around for quite some time. And specific industries like the ones I mentioned, legal, healthcare, insurance, have been working with the concepts of case management for quite a while. What's new is the technology that we have now to support case management. A lot of the technology, again, was still focused on workflow management tools, and it wasn't until fairly recently that we have some pretty slick design tools that we can do to model up applications and build really flexible workflows that are kind of at the heart of the case management system. So anyway, this tool that I've got here is designed to allow a business analyst to model and build the application with very little involvement from IT. All right, I'm going to jump into this contract case management solution because that's the one I've been talking about. And here's where we define our information. So these are the metadata properties of the contract and the vendor information that we want to capture around this case. So I'm defining my information. And then I'm coming over here and I'm defining my people that I want involved. So I'm developing roles that are going to be involved with resolving this case. We can define some work queues and document types that we want to be working with in this case solution. And then we create the application pages. And you can set different layouts for different roles. So depending upon who you are, you might see different things within the application. And these pages are really easy to mock up. I'm going to jump over here to my views and just show this real quick. So check in doc. So this is the view that we use in our solution when we're checking in documents. And you can pick a layout for the page. So there's these section layouts, there's tab layouts, there's tile layouts. There's a number of different layouts you can select. But then you're basically, you've got your information down here in the bottom left, and you're basically dragging and dropping these fields to wherever you want to put them on your page. And once you've got them on the page, you can give them a label, you can define some help that appears when the user mouses over the field. You can make them read-only or required. You can specify default values. So you're basically building out the user interface here. And the reason I'm showing this to you is just to show you how easy it is and to really stress the fact that this is something that a business analyst can mock up without a lot of IT resources. Not only can they mock it up and deploy it, but they can come in here and make changes pretty quickly on the fly as needed to support the business requirements. Okay, I'm going to discard that. There's also typically a rules engine in these products. Remember I said this is where you can come in and build those guardrails around the process that you need. And then the last thing that you would do is define your tasks. And again, this is this list of tasks that we developed for our solution. And this is really kind of like a Chinese menu, if you will. You can come in here, pick and choose which tasks. The user picks and chooses which tasks they want to initiate during the resolution of the case. But here is where you can also bring some business process management to bear. So you can establish these BPM workflows within these tasks. So I'm going to open up the contract submission. And this is what my workflow looks like. Okay? And if any of you ever worked with Visio, this looks a lot like a Visio swim lane diagram, and that's exactly what it is. And it's as easy to create as a Visio swim lane diagram. So I can take a role, or I can add a new lane here to my solution, and I can assign a role to it. And then it's a matter of just adding my steps to that role and then defining my steps. So I might call this upload final documents. I can give it a description. I can write some instructions for the end user that they'll see in the user interface. And then I develop my responses. And these responses are going to be buttons that the user has the option of clicking to route this item, this case, this work item, to the next place in the workflow. So I might say, send for execution, or maybe failed. There's a negative route here. And then I can add attachments. I can specify the page layout. These are the page layouts that we looked at a moment ago. What do I want this user to see when they open this work item? And then it's really just a matter of using your connector tool like you would in Visio and setting a route and then defining what condition that route. So I'm going to say that send for execution route is going to go up here to execute final. So again, the reason I show you this is just to show you that this doesn't take a lot of IT involvement. It's really about allowing the business users to define a solution and mock it up, really using business analyst resources, maybe some designer resources, but really not having to have a lot of development and IT resources involved. All right, I'm going to jump back to presentation here. So here's a few lessons learned that we took away from our projects that I think will benefit anyone who's looking to deploy a case management solution. But first, don't get too fixated on workflow. Focus on the goals and the desired outcomes, as well as the people and information you need to bring to bear on the case before locking in on the process. It's so easy to come at this with the traditional BPM mindset and think that defining the workflow is the ultimate goal. 2, don't spend too much time in planning and design. Be agile. If any of you are familiar with software development, there's a traditional waterfall approach where you spend a lot of time on the front end gathering requirements, and you design things on paper, and you get everybody to agree on the solution, and you spend a lot of time in this design process and get sign-off before you even touch a keyboard to develop something. Then there's also what's referred to as an agile approach in software development. And in agile, the goal is to mock up small features in a short amount of time, get user feedback quickly, make rapid revisions, and then deliver value in incremental releases. And case management works very well with an agile approach. You shouldn't have to spend months in a design cycle. And thirdly, plan for some customizations. You can do a lot with these out-of-the-box case builder solutions, and depending upon the solution that you select, most applications that you might want to build, assuming some medium level of complexity, most of them can be built using out-of-the-box functionality for probably 80 to 85% of the solution requirements. However, at some point, you're going to want a feature that doesn't come out of the box. For example, you might need a custom widget that can send a text message to a specific person or auto-generate a contract number. We find that typically somewhere between 50 to 20% of the solution will require some customizations. So for that reason, I would recommend that you find a vendor to work with that has experience either building these accelerator widgets or that already has a library of custom widgets that they've built for other customers that will really speed up your deployment process. All right, just a quick word on evaluating solutions. If you're considering purchasing a case management solution and you're in legal or healthcare, there's probably a point solution already available on the market that will meet 80 to 90% of your needs. However, if you're interested in doing something more unique, or if you're interested in developing other business applications on the case management platform, you want to look at a case builder application. And this is Gartner's Magic Quadrant that evaluates the primary players in this market. Obviously, the top right corner is where you want to be. Pegasystems is a good product. It focuses primarily on use cases for customer relationship management, sales, and marketing. And if those are your use cases, I would definitely give that product a look. I'm a little bit biased. We are an IBM business partner, and I've got to say the case management, the IBM Case Manager product is a great product, and IBM has made a lot of investments in it recently, specifically around making it very friendly for mobile users and integrating it with a lot of other applications. So one big advantage of a case builder solution is that you can reuse it to build out a wide variety of other applications across the organization. So it doesn't just have to be a single line of business point solution. So typically what happens, we implement a solution, we get it up and running fairly quickly, we get a quick win, other lines of business see what's going on, and then they see use cases that they can use the solution for, and it begins to spread. And so Case Manager really becomes a kind of a shared service that can be utilized across the enterprise. So that's all the information I've prepared. I just want to open up the floor for any questions you guys might have.
Hi David, Kristen here. We do have a few questions coming in. The first question is case management really replacing BPM, or is it just using BPM differently?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
Is case management really replacing BPM, or is it just using BPM differently?
That's a great question, and I may be a little too hard on BPM on this presentation, but case management really grew out of BPM and enterprise content management, and it's really the next evolution of BPM. There are definitely use cases where BPM is the preferred option over case management. But a lot of companies are moving to case management just because of the flexibility, and they're more concerned with enabling their knowledge workers than they are having a very set, defined process that typically by the time you define these processes and get everybody's buy-in, the business climate or the environment changes and you'll need a new process. So the flexibility and the agility around case management is definitely attractive to a lot of people depending upon your use case.
Awesome. Next question. In your example of the contracting system, how long did it take to do that project?
Ooh, okay. So our design phase took about 6 weeks. We met with quite a few divisions within the hospital and gathered their requirements and learned about their contracting process. So that was about a 6-week process to produce a design. The actual technology implementation, which included a document repository and some scanning and imaging and indexing software, also took about 6 weeks to get into a single environment. So on both ends, it was a pretty quick deployment. Where we got hung up on that project was after design and before implementation. And we actually spent about 6 months kind of noodling over, do we have the right workflow? And is this going to meet everybody's needs? And at the end of the day, we all realized we were way too focused on the workflow and not enough focused on the people and the knowledge workers and the information we needed to bring to bear. Once we got over that hump, the implementation actually went pretty quick.
Awesome. So those are actually all the questions we have today. We're a few minutes early. Before I hand it back to you, David, everyone, just so you know, there is a quick survey at the end of this webinar. So once you close out, there'll be a 1-question survey just asking how you thought we did. If you could answer that, we'd really appreciate it. We loved your feedback. And feel free to email me if you have any other questions. David, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope this was a good use of your time. Please do take the survey that Christian mentioned and let us know if it was valuable for you or not. But other than that, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.